Woohoo! We're swinging it open, the gateway to your weekend. Folks, by the way, it's a Friday, and we do this on Fridays. On today's edition of Kelly and Company, it's spring. And you know what that means? Yes, hockey playoffs. But never mind that for now. We'll get to that in just a moment. But we think of Mayflowers, leaves on trees, and all that stuff. But for Greg David, it also means pilot season. He's here with a list of new TV shows, possibly headed to a small screen near you. He shoots, he scores, all that up next.
This is Kelly and Company.
Thanks for being with us. Kelly MacDonald here, host of the program. You can email us at kellyco@ami.ca. And I give a big hey to Brock Richardson. He's joining us for the program today. Nazreen will be along shortly to join us. But Mr. Richardson, keeping busy, and welcome back.
Yes, always busy, and this time of year is my favorite time of year. Lots of stuff going on in the world of television and politics and sports. It's a whole bunch of goodness all at the same time.
Loaded question. At this time of the year, hockey or baseball? What are you more into?
See, I kind of cheat. I have both on at the same time, but the TV gets the main, the hockey game, and then baseball gets the slighted tablet, as it were. But yeah, hockey takes more of the precedence at this point.
And that's just not something you want to hear. At 26 years old, this guy is supposed to be in the prime of his sports playing life, getting ready to do big contracts, and the Dallas Mavericks make a trade. In other words, let's move him the hell out of here because this guy isn't cutting it. So sad to see that. I guess that's the issues that the Lakers will have to deal with going forward. In sports, something you just don't want to hear if you're part of the Lakers franchise. But on our side over here, Blue Jays doing well. Can't complain about them, Brock, in this particular sports world. And hockey, Brock, a good thing right now.
Yes, indeed. And it's going to be a great conversation. With us now is Nick Alberga, host and director of the Leafs Morning Take from Nation Network, to talk NHL playoffs. Nick, thank you so much for returning to the program, and happy to have you on Kelly and Company.
Guys, my pleasure. A joyous day here in the beautiful city of Toronto for the second time in 21 years the Toronto Maple Leafs have won a series. How are you guys on this Friday?
Wonderful.
Well.
Hey.
Very well.
Wow.
Yes. So let's talk about those playoffs. What are the different things that stand out to you so far in the NHL playoffs? Who's got you worried? Who's blowing it? And who's blowing your mind and being successful?
Well, I would say, as per usual, it's been chaotic. It's been unpredictable. And this is why we love the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, starting with the Maple Leafs perspective, again, as mentioned, for the first time in 21 years, or second time, they won a playoff series. It was hard fought. The Battle of Ontario brought back memories, quite frankly, of my childhood. The Maple Leafs now 5-0 in all-time Battle of Ontarios in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And good on them, because I think round two is going to be extremely difficult. They're playing a Florida Panthers team who ousted the Tampa Bay Lightning, their rival, in 5 games. So that should be a really, really good battle. Should start probably on Sunday or Monday here over the weekend. But I think the one thing I've noticed throughout the league is the volatility in the crease, where you just never know what's going to happen with your starting goaltender. Whether you look at the Edmonton Oilers, who advanced last night, started with Stuart Skinner, who took them and was a big component in them going to a Stanley Cup final last year. And now he's on the bench, and their backup Cal Pickard has won 4 consecutive starts. But every series has had its unique wrinkle. From the Carolina series, the Washington Capitals take care of business against the Montreal Canadiens. I've loved the Dallas Colorado series, now headed for a Game 7. And, speaking of Canada, the Winnipeg Jets, I know they're battered and bruised, and Mark Scheifele's not going to play in Game 6 tonight, but they have a chance to advance to round 2 with a win tonight against the St. Louis Blues on the road.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, let's stick a bit there, because I am curious. I was going to jump questions and grab something else about the Edmonton series, but I think we better start with, out of the teams, who do you think goes the furthest in the Canadian teams?
It's a really good question. Like, I'll be frank in saying I picked the Edmonton Oilers to win my Stanley Cup this season. Having said that, I think even watching the first round where they were lucky, I think, to win that series. In fact, they dropped the first two games and riled off four in a row. But LA led in all four of those games, or all six of those games. And it was just a very unique series that if you play that way, 99 out of 100 times you're going to lose that series. But they found a way, and obviously a big reason with McDavid and Draisaitl. So to answer your question, for me, I have to stick with the team I picked in the Oilers, but they definitely have some fleas. Ekholm on the back end's not healthy, not playing. I wonder about them defensively and in the crease, but I'll go with Edmonton. But I mean, the better chances are with Toronto or Winnipeg, but I can't deviate from my cup pick, guys.
Wow. I'm curious what your opinions were on how Montreal did in their series with Washington, but really just to find them there. I looked up and there they were going to go into the playoffs.
I thought it was a really good fight. Probably not indicative of 5 games, by the way. I thought it was much closer, and that happens a lot in the playoffs. I remember a series a couple years back with Carolina where they were firmly in the mix and they got swept. But, the margin for error this time of year is razor thin, and sometimes you're not going to push through. They played the Florida Panthers a couple years back and they were swept, and it really felt like a blowout, and it wasn't. But I think you look at the Montreal perspective, really green team, really, really young. The fact that they got some, learning lessons, some experience in the Stanley Cup playoffs, I think will really, really help them in the long run. But they played a well-oiled team in the Washington Capitals, and of course, Alex Ovechkin breaking the record about a month or so ago. And I thought it was a huge story in that series. I think the physicality was big too. Tom Wilson played a key component, and goaltending. We just talked about volatility. Logan Thompson, you have to credit him. Gets hurt in that series, comes back the next game and stands on his head. So I think it was much closer than the 5 games would indicate. And I think from a Montreal perspective, they were playing with house money because nobody expected that team to make the playoffs to begin with.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting Montreal to do what they did, but I also would say to you guys that, like, if we look there and we say, well, I mean, Washington got to a point where it's like, did they galvanize around Ovechkin's record? That's what I kind of wondered. Was it going to be a sleep story? And nonetheless, it was not. If we talk about the Ottawa Senators just briefly, they obviously got eliminated by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Would you consider that a success for the Ottawa Senators, given that they were kind of in a similar position as the Montreal Canadiens, where we kind of didn't really expect them to do a whole lot? But can we define this as a success for this season?
That's a good question because, again, you look at the fan base in Ottawa, like they're just delighted their team got to 6 games in round 1 against the rival Toronto Maple Leafs. And in my opinion, Ottawa's further ahead, if you will. And I don't know if you want to call it a rebuild. Like, it's been a disappointing last 5 to 7 years for that franchise, that organization. But it just seemed like from the onset, just getting to the playoffs, they were going to be happy with that, which I think is a unique, and maybe that's too harsh of a word to use, look of things, because ultimately you want to win a Stanley Cup. But I think similar to Montreal, I expected Ottawa to be there as opposed to the Habs where, came out of nowhere to make the Stanley Cup playoffs. But I think next for the Ottawa Senators, you got to push through. You got to win at least a round and prove that you're not only just going to make the playoffs, you're going to make some hay in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But I think all in all, first appearance since 2017, I thought they played good. They were right there with the Leafs, kept them tight, kept them honest. So certainly from their perspective, probably a win, yeah.
Okay. Do we want to say anything about the other Canadian team, Vancouver and Calgary? We haven't touched on either of those two. Should anything to be said, Nick, that you've heard ear to the ground stuff lately?
Well, Calgary, we can start with them. I think they were a tremendous story. I know they fall short of making the Stanley Cup playoffs, but another team we thought was maybe in a retool. And they found a way to scratch and claw. And Dustin Wolf, their number 1 netminder, who's a rookie, was great this year. I think a key reason why. So for them, I want to see them build off that. And in Vancouver, it was the tire fire all season long. And it just shows you that you're not given anything every season, right? That's why even from the Maple Leafs perspective, you got to get there before you try to prove that you're different in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And, it's crazy. A year ago at this time, we we're talking about the Vancouver Canucks and could they go on a long, deep run in the Stanley Cup playoffs? And now we're talking about they need a new head coach. They traded JT Miller, arguably their best player at the trade deadline. Elias Pettersson is never on the ice. Thatcher Demko, their goalie, is never healthy. And the big thing for me is Quinn Hughes, the captain of the Vancouver Canucks, is 2 years away from unrestricted free agency. And he was a big Rick Tocchet guy who moved on from his post as the head coach. So there's a lot of moving parts. Never a dull day in this country, guys.
Okay, let's look south for a moment. One of the interesting things that was getting a lot of buzz just before the playoffs started is the fact that of the original 6 teams, 4 of them, the big American ones, were not involved this year in the playoffs. A drastic switch from last year when they were here. I'm talking, of course, Chicago, New York, Boston, and Detroit. What are the thoughts that you think when it comes to the NHL, the marketing strategy that it has to have, the involvement of the American networks, and trying to get eyes on the sport down south? What impact does this have?
Yeah, it's kind of infuriating, I'll be honest, just because of the scheduling. It drives me insane why games are starting at like 6:30 and 9:45. And there was a Vegas, Minnesota game here in round 1 that started at 11 p.m. Eastern time. It was a very, very late night, guys. It's interesting because I think that's an honest question, but I don't mind the parity. I think the way things are labeled and structured in this NHL with a salary cap is that every team has an opportunity to not only make the playoffs, but compete for a Stanley Cup. Vegas is a prime example of that. Look what Seattle did in year 1, making the playoffs. Like, you just never know what's going to happen. And I love the unpredictability of that. Like, if you want to compare it to the NBA, every year, the 6 to 8 teams that are going to compete for an NBA championship, where in the NHL, the upper echelon teams, but the Rangers are a prime example. Like, going into this season, everybody pegged the New York Rangers as a perennial Stanley Cup contender, and they don't even make the Stanley Cup playoffs. Same conversation for the Boston Bruins. So from that standpoint, maybe not great that they don't make it because you want your big market teams playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but I actually don't mind it. And I like new blood. That's why I liked Montreal getting in there. That's why I like the Ottawa Senators. I think it's always great to get, CanCon, Canadian content. From that perspective, I think it brings more eyeballs in this country at least. So that's what I would say. It's just a lot of parity in this league, and that's why it's so hard to make the playoffs.
Yeah, it really is. It's fun to watch and fun to see who might get in from year to year. Nick, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Always great to have you on the program.
My pleasure, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Nick.
That was Nick Alberga talking to us about the NHL playoffs. Always enjoy the conversation.
So you're watching a lot of games. What have you been surprised by outside of things Nick has mentioned? Anything that you left on the table there?
I really truly was surprised by the Washington Capitals. I really thought, I mentioned it briefly, I really truly thought they were going to fall off a little bit from the season. I thought that they galvanized around Ovechkin, and I'm really surprised to see that they're doing it. It's going to remain to be seen. Can they continue it? If they do it through the next round here, I think that's your Stanley Cup contender in the Eastern Conference. I believe that once they can get past a second round, I become believers. But right now, I'm waiting for the fall off from the Washington Capitals.
Nick mentioned about picking his team, Edmonton, riding them right through, it looks like, to the end. Did you pick a team at the beginning of the season?
I did, and I would say that I agreed with Nick. I picked Edmonton and thought that they would get there. It was very dicey at the beginning when they went down 2-0, losing both games in LA. But man, does LA ever have some demons to take care of, because now this is 4 straight series against the LA Kings that they've taken care of business. The LA Kings must be looking at Edmonton going, man, what do we have to do to get past this team?
Yeah, they're their devil. Brock Richardson joining us on the show. He is also available. You can find him hosting the Neutral Zone podcast. We also welcome back Lady Ed handles the co-hosting duties on the show and our social media, Nazreen Abdel-Majid. Good morning, Niz.
Good morning. Happy Friday, guys.
I should say good afternoon. What the heck? I'm working the day through. Niz, I know yesterday we had a wonderful political chat, and I'm going to go behind the scenes here on the show for people that missed it. But you had some great things to share on it, and I know you get looking on social media, and a lot of time that's right now the buzz, the conversations that are going on out there. all about our politics, all about the effects and stuff like that. And we all question ourselves on how much we know. We wanted to talk a little bit about disability because it kind of falls off. How do you feel? Did we do okay? I thought we had some interesting points. Excuse me.
I think
you
we
ladies
had.
did.
Yeah, I think we had so many interesting points, and I felt like the time flew by, and we didn't even get to half of all the information that we wanted to share and express and what we felt about the whole federal election. So we need a part two, that's for sure.
Yeah, and some stuff to put up online. I mean, Mark Carney press conference. We won't get into any of that today, but so many addresses and things like that happening and fast moving. So look for that. Look for us to get into a little bit more of that involved with the show and, of course, on social media. So remember, check out our podcast from your platform of choice and give us a rating and review if you would. Also, subscribe to our YouTube page. Always have some great content over there.
TV guy Greg David is here today to update us on pilot season in the US when networks create the first episode of a potential new TV series as a way to decide their upcoming fall broadcast seasons. Greg, welcome. Happy Friday.
Well, thanks so much for having me. And happy Friday to you too.
So let's start off by asking you what pilot episodes of possible TV series really caught your eye?
Yeah, I mean, this is an unprecedented year for conventional television because in the past, when I've been on this show or boring my family with talking about TV, it's been literally dozens of pilot episodes have been made by the American networks. And that's the way that they decide from a pilot episode whether they're going to go ahead and make a series out of it. The executives sit down and watch these first episodes, these often quite rough episodes, and make those decisions. This year, there's 5. And I just found out yesterday that one of them has been bumped to next year. So I'm here to talk about 4 pilot episodes of shows. And the reason why is because the networks really aren't gambling the way that they used to because of the streaming services that are out there. And the fact that people tend to tune into streaming services more often nowadays, the conventional networks are sticking with the shows that are successful for them. So that means less room for the new stuff. So what's caught my eye so far? Well, over on CBS, it's the latest in the FBI franchise. So the FBI franchise, I think there's 3 or 4 shows now in that franchise that follows different FBI teams across the country and around the world. And the newest one is led by a British actor named Tom Ellis, who's been in a bunch of stuff. And this show is called FBI CIA. So not too much information known about this. We just know that it's a procedural like the FBI franchise is currently. Tom Ellis is going to play a fast-talking, loose-cannon CIA case officer, and he's going to be paired with a by-the-book FBI agent. So you've got the straight by the book. You've got the person that's loosey-goosey. So, of course, there's going to be a fish out of water for both of them. That's where the chemistry is going to be involved in this show called FBI CIA. So combining two alphabet groups down in the U.S. for a new drama. A sitcom that caught CBS's eye is something called DMV, so short for Department of Motor Vehicles. This is actually based on a short story by author Katherine Heine, and it's going to be a single camera comedy set in the Department of Motor Vehicles. It's going to be Tim Meadows is going to be on this, so that's already a plus for me. I love Tim Meadows, the things that he's done in the past, from Mean Girls to other sitcoms on other networks. But here's the log line for DMV. Our quirky and lovable characters are making minimum wage, doing a thankless job where customers are annoyed before they even walk in the door. Good thing they have each other. Listen. Every workplace comedy kind of has this same log line. So that really doesn't jump out and excite me all that much. I mean, I'm more of a drama person anyway in documentaries. But Brock, Nazreen, when I read out a log line like that, does that excite you at all? Or are you like, nah, I don't know?
Brock, I'll let you lead with that.
For me, that's I love the comedy side of things. So yeah, I mean, I love the line of people are already annoyed before they walk in the door. Yeah, that's real life at the DMV, unfortunately, and so I think that's where at least they hit on the real true points of it. And so yeah, I'm liking it. I don't know that the log line would jump out at me, but the comedy in and of itself, I'm like, yeah, I'm on board.
Yeah, I mean, no,
Yeah,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. I was gonna say I agree with you guys. It doesn't really jump out, but when I think of that line, I think of Brooklyn Nine-Nine and how obsessed I am with that show.
Hmm.
And they take something serious and make it into a comedy, and it was like, a crazy funny show. But yeah, so I would go for that. I'm not much of. I mean, I love drama, I love documentaries, and I love like the mystery of it. But when it comes to just me sitting alone watching TV, I like to laugh. But yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? I think you bring up a really good point, Nazreen. I mean, we are laughing and acknowledging that the log line isn't going to sell the show. It's going to be those characters. And yeah, as somebody
Mhm.
who's headed into watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine for it might be my third time now on Netflix.
Yeah.
You can use that log line to describe any, workplace sitcom, and it's all about how the characters interact, the writing. It's all about that execution. So yeah, I mean, I'm doing a little bit tongue in cheek and also acknowledging that people are angry. I'm angry before I go into any building out in the public now. It doesn't just have to be the DMV. Here's a sitcom that I'm excited about over on NBC, and the reason why is because Tina Fey and Tracy Morgan are attached to this. Obviously, if you're a fan of 30 Rock, you know both of those names. You know them both also from Saturday Night Live. This is an untitled sitcom right now on NBC that Tina Fey is executive producing, and it stars Tracy Morgan, and he's going to play a disgraced former football player named Reggie. He's on a mission to rehabilitate his image. Wow, that's pretty timely with regard to sports people trying to reinvent their image. He
Mhm.
and Tracy Morgan's involved in that. He's going to play the lead, and also Daniel Radcliffe from Harry Potter is going to be part of this. He's going to be playing a character named Arthur Tobin. He's an award-winning filmmaker who's going to move into Reggie's mansion to film this documentary that is aimed to really rehabilitate Tracy Morgan's his name or his character Reggie. So hey, you know what? Tina Fey behind the scenes, Tracy Morgan in front of the camera, along with Daniel Radcliffe. I mean, this seems like it might be interesting to
This is
me.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
because
can't
Daniel
imagine
Radcliffe could do.
Daniel Radcliffe in a comedy.
Well, it's
No.
funny that you say that because he's been in a couple of British sitcoms. He was in one which was great with Ricky Gervais several years ago, which was all about characters being cast and those secondary characters on TV shows.
No
So he can
way.
certainly do comedy, and there was a romantic comedy that he filmed in Toronto way pre-COVID that was really good as well. So he can do comedy. Brock, your thoughts?
I I struggle very much with Daniel Radcliffe because I mean he's Harry Potter, right? Like
Yeah.
that's who he is. So anything
Mhm.
I see him in outside of Harry Potter, I'm like, that's he's Harry Potter, right? So he gets such an unfair rap from me because he's good at other things, but it's like, no, that's Harry Potter, and that's where it begins and ends for me. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I grew
It's
up watching
true.
Harry Potter. To this day, I still watch Harry Potter. So when I connect Daniel, that's it. That's the only image I have of him in Harry Potter. So to picture him in a comedy, this is interesting. I need to watch those comedies that you're talking about.
Yeah, Brock. I mean, that's the curse of being pigeonholed, right? You're in a successful franchise, whether it be a film or a TV show, and you're always going to be associated with that. And it's really, really to shake that. So hoping that he's able to shake it for that, for this
Pun
sitcom for
intended with the
NBC.
curse, Greg.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Pun
yeah, yeah.
intended. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. The one show that isn't going
Mm.
to be on that originally CBS said was going to be a part of their pilot season and possibly going to series is one that's interesting. It stars Matthew Gray Gubler, and he was in Criminal Minds for I think that show's been on. I don't want to say decades, but certainly over a
Yes.
decade, and it's been rejuvenated over on Netflix. He's going to be in a new drama called Einstein that's It's now been bumped to the 2026-27 season. And here's the log line for that one. Brilliant but directionless, the great-grandson of Albert Einstein, played by Matthew Gray Gubler, spends his days as a comfortably tenured professor until his bad boy antics land him in trouble with the law, and he's pressed into service helping the local police solve their most puzzling cases. So, okay, we've had this kind of thing before with Elementary several years ago, which was kind of a take on the Watson and Holmes storyline, and now here we are taking the real character of Einstein and bumping that down to great grandson solving crimes. There is a definite pattern, right? Einstein and that association.
Yeah.
So and there's also a medical drama on an American network right now called Watson that's all about solving cases by a guy named Dr. Watson, with that tie-in is, again. So it's all about, a familiarity with names in history and fictional history in getting eyeballs. So thoughts on Einstein?
I am interested. Because I know Matthew and I've watched Criminal Minds like from beginning to end, and I love Matthew in it, so I would be interested in it. How about you?
Yeah, for me, those ones are, I don't know, they're just not my type. It's not something that catches my eye to want to go and watch.
Yeah. You want to laugh, and I totally understand that. And yeah, I mean, other than those 4 shows and Einstein being bumped to next year, the last pilot that's been ordered is over at NBC, starring an actress named Jen Lyon. It's called Stumble, and it's a mockumentary series. We all know that Parks and Rec and The Office did really well with that. This is a mockumentary about the ridiculously high stakes competitive world of junior college cheer. So maybe mix in a little bit of Glee in there, but without the singing, and you've got Stumble over on NBC. But that's it. Like I said, streaming services are really eroding viewers. Unfortunately, at this point anyway, no members of the disability community attached to any of these projects, so no representation on any of these. So a little bit of a disappointing season when it comes to pilot season down in the U.S.
Yeah, that does suck, honestly. Sorry, Brock, go ahead.
Yeah, but it does speak to the fact that like they want to stick to the stuff that they know. Like, I'm excited that they're sticking with 911, Chicago. Like, those are all shows that I like and I watch, and so I get it from a organization, and we're just gonna stick with what we know, and what we know is successful.
I do feel like it's a trend these days from like this year and last year. But thank you so much, Greg.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, really interesting stuff always with Greg, and I hope the lack of disability activism, roles, whatever you want to call out there being seen, isn't that sign of, okay, we're past that now. It's not an in thing like it seemed to be where we were able to hit on it. Guys, thank you both very much. Brock Richardson, find him on the Neutral Zone. Nazreen Abdul-Majid, find her on social media and hanging out with me here on Kelly and Company. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Kelly & Co. AMI. On our next show, are you ready to get a grip on your chaotic email inbox and finally clean some things up? Michael Babcock joins us with tips on how to organize our email life. Plus, summer's around the corner and a whole new crop of delicious food is going to be available. Is it a benefit to eat seasonally? Nutritionist Julia Caranches says yes and tells us exactly how. We'll talk to you on Monday, and do me a favor, get out of here, will ya?
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly and Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.